Hello, this video is in response to Once Forgiven Now Free's video asking atheists whether or not they believe their brain was intelligently designed. I'm going to answer this question by addressing some in the atheistic community that believe that aliens could have possibly done it, because I don't really see the point in asking an atheist whether or not they believe their brain was intelligently designed by a god. So I'll respond to that by saying, no, I'm not personally one of those atheists that think that my brain was intelligently designed by any being. And the reason is because I don't have proof. The next question he asks is whether or not that raises any red flags, and again the answer is going to have to be no. For several reasons. Again, because I have no evidence, and I just don't make a habit of believing things I don't have evidence for. And you can say that it's apparent, or you can say that it's self-evident, but there are many things in history that were apparent and self-evident, and they turned out being very wrong. Like, for instance, I might say that it's obvious that the sun revolves around the earth because we see it go across the sky, and clearly we're not moving. That's something that some would say was common sense if they didn't understand the actual science behind it. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is nature does amazing things, and there's no reason to degrade nature by saying that it couldn't have done this. It carries out very complicated processes that do very complex, intricate things. You just remove the human brain from the equation, there's still a million things that this universe does strictly by nature that are just mind-blowing and amazing. So why can't the brain be one of those things? I don't see the connection whatsoever. So no, it doesn't raise a red flag. I'm also going to address the video that you made in response to Thunderfoot, because I think you really get to the meat of your argument in that video. I think you really tell us what this is all about, because it's clearly some catch that you're trying to get at. And one of the things you ask him in the video is, how can we trust our brains at that point? And that is a big point, is that we kind of can't trust our brains in a lot of instances. We have a very limited perception of the world around us. Our brain is constantly fooling us. The stars look smaller because of the distance. Any object really that's in the distance looks smaller, and so we misevaluate it. We're bad with numbers over 10. And there's a list of other mental, logical flaws that our brain has, and it tricks us on a daily basis, and we're constantly having to guard against it through science. That's why we need science, is because our brain isn't fully trustworthy. And I think if you were to talk about something like, say, heliocentrism 1,000 years ago, they might say the same thing that you're saying. Doesn't that raise any red flags that somehow our Earth is moving and that you don't feel it? And it's because, again, our brain just really isn't equipped to think about a lot of these things. We've had to find a lot of ways around things. And that's, I think, where a lot of atheists come from, is we're just saying we're tired of assuming that we would rather know something for certain and be able to analyze it scientifically and understand it fully before we believe in it. And science is special because it allows us to make predictions. Anybody who drives a car or gets on a computer agrees that science works. So we agree on that, and that's the tool I use. And there's also something I think that Christians misunderstand about the word appears, and I understand how it sounds when an atheist says that things appear designed but aren't designed, like, for instance, our brain. And I want to explain that a little bit by, again, giving the analogy of, say, the Earth going around the sun. It appears that the sun goes around the Earth, but because of our will to go naturally with our inclinations, we're often wrong about things. There are illusions like pareidolia, which isn't anything that's wrong with our eyesight. It's because of the way our brain perceives things. We see faces in just random objects. Why would a God do that? What purpose would a God have in us seeing a face in a light outlet, like or an electrical outlet? What's the purpose in that? Or seeing faces in toasts and everything else? Clearly the evolutionary explanation is that we seek social comfort, and so we're constantly looking for faces. It's a side effect. And I feel like the next question you might ask is, why trust our brains at all? And this is a presupposition, but this is a presupposition for everyone. We're all kind of assuming that our brain is trustworthy on some level. Otherwise, there's no point in thinking about anything. You're trusting that your brain is evaluating your faith correctly. Otherwise, you would have no reason to trust it. So we're both presupposing that our brain is seeing the world on some level correctly. The only difference is I use science specifically and exclusively to make my conclusions. I rely specifically on evidence and nothing else. And I kind of want to end the video by raising my own red flags, because we know our brain is flawed. And so my question is, why would a God who wants us to reach him logically allow these brain flaws? Now, you might talk about the fall of man and all those things, but what you're proposing is that Christianity is a logical conclusion. But the question if it's a logical conclusion, then why would God then allow these huge brain errors that we have? Everyone seems to be on their own scales logically. Some people are better at it. So if our brain is flawed, then why would a God then ask of humanity to believe in him logistically? And I understand some people believe in faith, but I'm talking specifically about once forgiven, now free's position. And I want to finish by addressing what you said to Thunderfoot about Christianity being the next step in evolution. And this is where you're going to lose all the evolutionists. This is where you're going to convince them that you don't know what you're talking about, because there are no next steps in evolution. It's not like X-Men or something. It's not a comic book. It's not like we're evolving into superhumans or superheroes or anything of that sort. It's very conditional. It only allows for the condition. And so saying that it's a hierarchy and some forward direction from the point we're at now is ridiculous. And you're just going to continue to convince a lot of people who understand evolution that you don't understand evolution. And I understand that it's confusing because some articles talk about it, but all that's bunk, okay? None of that stuff counts. It's not like we're waiting for the next step in human evolution. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, I hope you respond back to my videos, and I hope anyone who has any contention with what I'm saying responds in a video response or in the comment section. Just let me know what you think. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you agree. Please be honest about it. If you think that I make a good point, just say I make a good point. And if you make a good point, then hopefully I'll be humble enough to admit that you've made a good point.